did you become you?
Oh, a minor question, sir. I don't think I've ever been asked that in my life. I mean, I think if that means how did I come to love history, I mean, it partly has to do, there's no question, as I always come back to my father teaching me how to keep score when I was a little girl so that I could record for him the history of that Brooklyn Dodgers game. And, you know, I think I learned the narrative art from those nicely sessions with my father, because at first I'd blurt out, after I had learned these miniaturized symbols, it was going to take 2 hours to tell him the story. The Dodgers won or the Dodgers lost, which took much of the drama of this 2-hour telling away. So I finally learned you had to tell a story from beginning to middle to end. Much later, read an essay by my heroine, Barbara Tuchman, who said, even if you're writing about a war, you have to imagine you do not know how that war ended, so you can carry a reader with you every step along the way, just knowing what the people at the time knew. So that's where that love of history came, even if it was just the history of the Dodger game 3 hours before. And then I had a teacher in high school, as is so often the truth, Miss Austin, and she won an award as the best history teacher in New York State. And then I went to some of the homes. My parents took me to FDR's home. I think there's nothing like seeing the homes of these people to feel like they're still alive. I remember when I was little seeing FDR's glasses on his desk and seeing his cigarette holder. And I said to this tour person, he's got to be alive. He left his glasses here. You know, and then seeing Fowler's leash on the bed upstairs and thinking the little dog was still running around. And then I began to think, you know, you could really write history as if they are still alive. You know, my only fear is that someday there'll be a panel of all these presidents I've ever studied in the afterlife, and they'll all be telling me every single thing I got wrong. And the first person to scream out will be LBJ. How come that book on the Kennedys was twice as long as the book you wrote about me? But speaking of LBJ, how I became what I became, there's no question that that experience of being a White House Fellow when I was 24 years old, working with LBJ, being with him on the ranch to help him on his memoirs, listening to him talk, having hours with him that I would never have had as a young person is what turned me into a presidential scholar. My PhD was in Supreme Court history. I might have been a Supreme Court historian, which would have been fine, but probably not as much fun as this has been.